So the base section is done. Most of this will be below the floor, so you're only going to see probably around 12 inch of this. The central section, which is tapered on all four sides, has been done. I have around a 4-inch tenon on this where it's going to insert into there, but you'll also notice a relief cut that I've put in just with a hammer and chisel. Anyone who's used to working with newel posts or staircases will realise the importance of that. Once you've got your glue on your tenon and you're inserting into your mortar, you can create, because it's a tight joint, you can create a vacuum or an airtight seal, which prevents you from fully seating the central section in, and then you're left with a gap where the two meet, and you've got to try and either force them down with a hammer on the top to push it. So this release cut allows me to insert it once it's glued up and all the air to escape and any excess glue. My double plinth block is also finished. This is going to get glued to the central section itself. Because these were machined at the same time, they were glued onto the newel post, I've essentially killed two birds with one stone, and I've tapered these at the exact same time. You will notice that at the bottom I've got a wider gap than what at the top because it's chamfered and tapered down. That's when the other two sections come on. Once they're glued on, that's now giving me the same distance top and bottom, which creates an even gap along the outer panel, as well as keeping the inner panel section uneven as well. So this is 50mm apart, top and bottom. I'm going to glue two sections on at a time, so I'm going to glue the top and bottom of these on, and then I'm going to leave that to tack up about 10-15 minutes with a Titebond 3 glue, which sets a lot faster than the Titebond 1 or 2 that I find, which is interior. So even though it's an exterior glue, it just seems to tack up a lot quicker. And then I'll come back and glue these sections on either side, and then essentially there's only the top cap left to do. I'm going to leave the newel post inserted into the base just to make it easier to align everything. Hoping once I've done this, the glue itself will hold everything into place. Long enough for me to put my clamps on. I heard he had a soft end. The newel itself is pretty much done now. The bottom section is completed, as well as the inner taper bit. I've also inserted the inner core for the top cap. This is really where the handrail is going to be fitted on. It's going to curve off. I still need to make this the same thickness as the top of the taper bit, so this outer section here. So I've made a sleeve. This is just 15mm thick timber, which will slide over. This will be glued into place while on fitting. So that's now taking me, I've got a square section here which isn't tapered for the handrail, makes it a lot easier for installing the handrail. And then I've got the top cap, so you can see I'm left with a little stub tenon with essentially a mortise point in here. This top cap will be glued on, and that's finishing my newel post completely now. This is, as I've mentioned, an offset newel post. So installing this on site is going to be a little bit different to a normal newel post where you're going to fit over your stringer. and then you'll be mortise and tenon in with a couple of dowels. I've made a sleeve. This is just MDF. This is going to be sunk below the floor, and it's going to be tied into the floor joists themselves. My bottom section will sit inside, and this is all going to be glued in. So this is going to be my finished floor level, and my Newel post is going to be up from there. Then once I'm all fully installed with the top cap on, I will place the inner tapered bit, which will slide on, and that's essentially my finished Newel post. My floor level's here. I've done it this way because there's a flooring contractor coming in before I fit my Newel post, so I'll fit the outer sleeve. I'm presuming the floor contractor will just lay his floor directly over this and then go in with a router trim and finish this off, which will give him a perfect joint to where my Newel post is, to save on any beadings or cappings that I have to go around to cover the gap between the flooring and the Newel. I'm not too sure. It's not something I'm getting involved with the flooring. The flooring contractor will deal with that. That's essentially that Newel post done. So a little bit more work than what you might expect from a basic Newel post. It's a very slender taper. We're only going out around 7mm from the total length. So it's very difficult to see, but it's just a hint of a taper just to slimline it and give a little bit more detail.